Good morning, ladies and gents. Here's today's video, our pre-teach video for Tuesdays. Remember, Tuesdays pre-teach. So let's get started. Um, our video today is about slope, and it says, "What is slope?" So for the next 2 months or so, we're going to be learning about this topic that is slope. And slope itself is steepness, okay? It is steepness. Maybe you can think of when you go off-roading on a car, you see people go up these crazy ramps in trucks and off like the rock climbing, and sometimes you might see warning signs on the side of the road that warn you about how steep a hill is. And it's important that we know how steep something is, in this case the slope of a line, and we're going to learn how to calculate that today. So the slope of a line is the ratio of the change in y to the change in x. The vertical change, the y change, to the horizontal change. And I intentionally tried to make all this lowercase and the other uppercase so it kind of stands out. But slope is the steepness of a line. The slope of the line is the ratio. Remember, a ratio is a comparison. So we're comparing the vertical change to the horizontal change, the y change to the x change, okay? So we have a graph here. Let's look at how to calculate slope when given a graph. Above, it said that slope was the change in y, the vertical change over the change in x. To remind you, this is your y-axis, and this is your x-axis. So if I told you to look at the change in y, I'm looking at going up 1, because this is where we begin, right? This is a perfect corner, and I'm going to go to this perfect corner. So to get from the first corner to this second corner, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my change in y. My change in y is 5. My change in x is 1. So I got a +1 there and a +5 here, right? For that change in y over the change in x. And remember, it's a ratio. So we're comparing that change in y, which was 5, to our change in x, which is 1. 5 over 1 is our answer. And remember, a fraction is a division problem. So this reads as 5 divided by 1, which is 5. Using that information, what would be our slope here? I want you to try to solve that. I'll put a little box on your paper or on your assignment so you'll be able to type in there what your slope is. Now, sorry. Now I want to scroll down a little bit and have us look down here. When we're talking about graphs, remember that all graphs have a y and x axis. At least in 8th grade they do. And when you look at a graph, we read left to right. So when you're looking at a graph from left to right, remember we said in class that if we put a little guy or a rock or anything, and from left to right, would he be going up a hill or down a hill? In this case, he's going up, so this graph is positive. This graph from left to right, our little guy is going downhill, so it would be negative. And for time's sake, and because I'm using scroll pad on my Mac, I'm just going to put neg for negative. Okay. Here, this is completely flat slope, what we call no slope, because he's not going up a hill, he's not going down a hill, it's just nothing. So this is no slope. It's flat. This is how I like it. Because anytime I have to go up a hill, I'm breathing hard because I'm fat and out of shape, right? So we have no slope right here. And then on this one here, our guy can't. There is no slope, right? So is the answer no slope? Well, we're not going to say no slope because if it was no slope, it'd be flat. But in this particular case, it's undefined because you can't count up and you can't count over. So this is undefined. And don't worry, we're going to get tons of practice with this. This is all just a pre-teach. So when your teacher, Miss Hill, Miss Gray, Mr. Trevino, Mr. Lara goes over it, I want you to kind of remember this video and be like, oh yeah, I remember that crazy fat black teacher. What was that dad's name, Mr. Heiston? He was talking about positives and negative slopes and the fat slope, no slope and the undefined slope. So that's kind of our idea here, okay? So now I'm go to the next slide. I'm gonna have to erase all this. Let's see if it'll let me be pretty. But I would like to keep the bottom while I go over the next slide real quick. All right. Nope, they got rid of everything. Oh well. Well, once again, um, right here, slope is steepness, how steep something is. I want to throw in something else though. You're going to hear it called rate of change. I'm going to put rate of change as well. It's all the same thing. If I had asked you what is slope and you told me steepness, you'd be correct. If I asked you what a slope is, you told me, oh, it's the rate of change of a line. You'd be correct. Remember, it's the comparison of the change in y to the change in x. Oh, time for class to begin. So a positive slope, and for time's sake, I'm just going to give an example of 1, 2, 3, 4. Positive slope example would be when this is increasing as well, but at a constant rate. So like 2, 4, 6, and 8. A negative example would be when things are going down. So once again, it needs to be at the same rate, but instead of going up, it's going down. So that would be like 8, 6, 4, and 2. And you can see that in the rate of change. You can see why it's called rate of change. Because remember, slope is the change in y over the change in x. So from here to here, the slope is going up plus 2 every time. It's going up plus 2. And this is going up plus 1 every time. But on this side, it's going down by 2 every time. All right. As this goes up by 1. So over here on the left, our slope would be 2 over 1 because the change in y was 2 and your change in x was 1. But over here, it would be negative 2 over 1 because the change in y was going down 2 and your change in x was going up by 1. So it's a negative versus a positive. All right. At the bottom, for time's sake, zero slope Remember, that's when slope was flat. That's when the graph looked something like this. It was just a flat graph. That means the y is not changing. So anytime you see y being zero, sorry, not y. Yeah, the y is not changing wherever it's at. So anytime you see it all the same, like let's say it's just 5, 5, 5, and 5, but the x is going up, but the y isn't changing, that's zero slope. All right. Ignore this one. That wasn't supposed to be there. But y'all have yourselves a blessed day, and we will practice this more in class.